Chapter 1, the first episode. Cultivating in the womb. In the dark void, inside the body of a 3-week-old fetus within a woman's womb, the first trace of spiritual consciousness emerged. The baby sensed an unusual situation around her. Deep within her soul, memories whispered to her, she was a half-fox demon, a female. The profound memories within her soul revealed that this sensation was called inheritance in the demon clan. Her mother was a 9-tailed fox demon who had transformed into a human. To stay beside the man she deeply loved, she gave up 1,000 years of cultivation and turned into a mortal. She could no longer use her demonic powers. The more she resembled a mortal, the more she would age. If she dared to use her magical powers, it would summon a heavenly tribulation, and not just any tribulation, but a fatal one. This was because the love between a human and a demon was not acknowledged by the world. 2 types of forbidden love were never recognized in this world, love between different species and love between master and disciple. These were the very things that those who claimed to follow the righteous path could never tolerate. Once discovered, both the man and woman involved would face severe punishment, often resulting in immediate execution without mercy or compassion. It seemed as though this was the true purpose of their existence. After a few days of exploring her body, the infant followed the guidance of the inheritance deep within her soul, searching for her innate abilities. However, upon understanding her unique skill, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her innate ability turned out to be human transformation. Delving deeper into the human transformation skill, its essence became clear. Members of the demon clan who possessed this ability, which only appeared in half-demons, could completely transform into an ordinary human. Only under extreme stimulation, when their mental world completely collapsed, would this innate ability mutate, revealing their half-demon identity. At this point, the innocent infant thought that such a mental collapse would never happen. After all, what kind of immense stimulation would it take for her spirit sea to shatter? Many years later, she would come to realize that there truly was something capable of utterly breaking her. Much later, she would understand that it wasn't so much the collapse of her spirit sea. Rather, it was when the soul governing her humanity chose to relinquish control and retreat, or perhaps fall into slumber. In such a state, she would enter a frenzied, irrational condition until the soul governing her humanity willingly returned to take control again. Although her innate ability was essentially useless, it didn't hinder her cultivation. The greatest advantage of the demon clan was that any knowledge possessed by their elders could be directly passed down through memories to their descendants. Though the infant's mother was now a mortal, she had once been a 1,000-year-old fox demon. Her collection of high-level human cultivation techniques was not small, and the infant could freely study those methods. The infant experimented a bit, attempting to cultivate using the demonic techniques from the inheritance. However, the result was disappointing. There was no sense of progress in cultivation. On the contrary, her soul seemed to grow slightly stronger. Reluctantly giving up on learning demonic arts, the infant began pondering her future. Without protective magic, she would be bullied wherever she went. The infant thought, since she was already a half-fox demon, perhaps she could try human cultivation techniques. Who knows, maybe she could cultivate using human methods. After reviewing the introductions to human techniques in her memories, along with some basic knowledge about cultivation, she began her attempts, searching for her spiritual roots. The human cultivator's spiritual roots are typically divided into 8 common types: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, wind, and thunder. Additionally, there exist spells that control space and time. The child examined their attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, time, space, curse, and healing. These 9 basic attributes are all present. According to human understanding, 5 basic attributes, time, space, curse, healing, can evolve or mutate into the 3 derived attributes of ice, wind, and thunder. Based on existing knowledge and the introduction from human cultivation manuals, the child ultimately chose to cultivate the unfettered scroll. From the knowledge acquired, she discovered that the demonic flame within her body is the rare chaotic azure flame. This so-called chaos fire is the highest level flame, surpassing even the five elements fire. It is precisely because she possesses the five elemental attributes that the flame manifested as the chaotic fire. Commonly seen in the world is the chaotic holy flame, but the child's flame is unique. Due to the inherited bloodline of the demon fox, and the Lake clan's focus on enchanting all beings, the so-called heart demon tribulation faced by cultivators is often overseen by Fairy Lake, who ascended to immortality. Of course, if a member of the Lake clan is tempted by the heart demon and falls, it is also a common occurrence. In such cases, it depends on the cultivation strength of the manifested heart demon, following the principle of survival of the fittest. Therefore, the child's flame should be called the chaotic azure flame, with its wondrous ability to aid cultivators in overcoming the heart demon tribulation. However, the method to utilize this ability is indeed dual cultivation between a man and a woman. As for what dual cultivation entails, the knowledge passed down to her gives her some understanding. It is essentially the process of bearing children with a man she loves. The child sighed, "I haven't even been born yet, isn't this common knowledge coming a bit too early?" The so-called spiritual energy of cultivators is the energy of the five elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The chaotic energy that the child requires involves absorbing the five elemental energy into the body, which is then fused by the body into chaotic energy before being absorbed. Although her mother is currently immortal, she can help convert a small amount of chaotic energy. However, the majority still requires the child to transform it herself. Humans carry pregnancies for 10 months, but in this cultivation world, some powerful cultivators with high levels of strength may have much longer pregnancy durations. This is a common phenomenon, and the child contentedly focuses on cultivating within her mother's womb. The beginning of the chaotic art reads, "Heaven and earth begin in chaos, Pangus separates yin and yang, the five elements reveal the cosmos, and I roam freely through the world. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, wind, thunder, time, and space, everything is my tool, and the great Tao endures for eternity." Following this, there are specific routes for energy circulation and methods for guiding energy into the body. The text mentions that if this method is cultivated within the womb, the child will be born with an innate body, reaching the so-called foundation establishment realm. This would significantly benefit the child's development after birth. Hence, the child is in no hurry and plans to be born only after reaching the foundation establishment stage. In this chaos technique, there are also hidden methods for harnessing magical power, as well as knowledge of identifying spiritual herbs and medicines, along with techniques for refining elixirs. Naturally, as a descendant of animals, she was inherently sensitive to herbs, as most of these things were already ingrained in her mind, including the herbs and their various scents. It could be said that just by seeing them, she could immediately determine whether they were poisonous or not. This was a subconscious ability, which could also be considered a kind of innate talent. Following the specific mental techniques outlined below, the infant continued cultivating, circulating the chaotic energy gathered throughout her body, and ultimately directing it into her dantian, located near the navel. The infant had nothing else to do. Her entire day revolved around cultivation. Gradually, she discovered that her body had reached a bottleneck, likely akin to the peak of the chi refining stage as described in texts. At this point, she realized that through continuous cultivation, the sea of energy formed in her dantian had grown significantly, and the next step was to compress this liquid energy into a more refined state. Simultaneously, the infant noticed that her body was different from what was recorded about ordinary people. She attempted to condense small seas of energy in her 5 organs, the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys, as well as at the Dan Zhong acupoint in her chest. When these areas each formed a small sea of energy, she excitedly filled each one. She made them as full and large as the sea of energy in her dantian. Then, she tried to establish seas of energy in other parts of her body. The inherited memories told her that the Lake clan had 9 tails, so she instinctively wondered if her seas of energy could also form 9. Counting them, it seemed she was still missing 2. Later, she discovered that seas of energy could also be condensed in her head and throat. Thus, she joyfully continued accumulating those chaotic seas of energy. At this time, her mother, with a belly swollen like a drum, had been pregnant for more than 3 years. Yet, the little one in her womb seemed very patient, showing no signs of being ready to be born. Her mother could only sense that the child was continuously absorbing spiritual energy from the outside world, focusing on rigorous cultivation, seemingly aiming to reach a certain realm before deciding to be born. Such a child would undoubtedly be a rare prodigy, 1 in 100 years. While the infant was busy cultivating, a probing thought approached her. The infant carefully sensed it. This thought felt very familiar. It must have been from her mother, with whom she was currently residing. Although unable to use demonic power, a bit of conscious communication was not an issue, akin to the introspection of mortals. In the path of cultivation, anyone who had not yet reached the foundation establishment stage was considered a slightly superior mortal. Therefore, her mother could only perform the introspection of a chi refining practitioner. More advanced techniques would invite heavenly tribulations, leaving her completely powerless to intervene. Her mother's consciousness transmitted a message: "Darling, how are you? Why have you absorbed so much spiritual energy but still haven't been born?" The infant responded with her consciousness: "Chaos, transformation, troublesome. Need to fill, 9, seas of energy, slow, time, compress, breakthrough." At this stage, the infant was still unfamiliar with using language, so her conscious communication was limited to single words. Her mother seemed to ponder for a moment before transmitting another message, though it carried a hint of confusion: 9. The infant's consciousness showed a bit of unease: 1, filled. Seeking, organs, filled, seeking weak points, then filling. The consciousness transmitted from the mother carried a deep sense of comfort: "It's okay, it's just that you've been trying so hard from the beginning. Cultivation will be very challenging later on." Following this was a sense of doubt: "What is your innate talent?" The child's mood clearly showed disappointment: human form transformation, spiritual power, collapse, human, ordinary. The mother's consciousness transmitted a sense of laughter and even deeper comfort. Perhaps she also expressed deep sympathy for her child's innate talent. Chapter 2, Part 2, The Draw. Shifting her thoughts, she considered that her child becoming an ordinary person might not necessarily be a bad thing, as the child would need to live for a long time among humans. The mother's consciousness asked again: "What cultivation technique are you practicing?" The child's consciousness conveyed joy: chaos art, human, energy C, compression, foundation establishment, birth. While the mother was pondering over the words strung together into this sentence, the child's consciousness shifted to fear and frustration, conveying 2 words: thunder punishment. The mother's spiritual sense seemed to think for a long time before understanding the meaning of this. It must be, practicing the chaos art, a human cultivation technique, requires fully compressing chaotic energy to reach the foundation establishment stage. Only then can the child be born. However, after birth, the child might have to undergo the baptism of a thunder tribulation. Since her child was practicing a human cultivation method, she couldn't provide full guidance and could only calm her child's emotions. Nevertheless, she worried about her child facing the thunder tribulation. If the child, born through such hardship, were struck to death by lightning, how immense her sorrow would be. The mother's consciousness asked: "What is your spiritual root?" The child happily replied: "Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, time, space, curse, healing." The mother deeply worried for her child. A child with such remarkable talent, cultivating 9 energy Cs at once, based on her experience, could be judged to be extraordinary even as a half-demon. This child would likely become a 9-tailed fox half-demon of exceptional prowess. She even wondered if she should return to the demon clan to request her father's assistance in helping her child overcome this tribulation. Feeling her mother's worry and doubt, the child's consciousness conveyed, "Not afraid, I'm strong, powerful." The mother couldn't help but transmit a mocking laugh. The child, at this stage, couldn't differentiate much. To the child, laughing meant happiness, meant everything was fine. She continued her efforts in cultivation. What is called foundation establishment is the process of expanding the meridians once again, compressing the spiritual energy in the various energy seas within the meridians into a liquid state. The purity of the liquid spiritual energy in the energy seas after condensation, along with the size of the energy seas, directly determines the strength of one's magical power when dueling with others in the future. Thanks to her efforts in nurturing her energy seas, years later, she earned fame in a single battle within the demon clan. The title of Mad Fox made even the demon emperors wary. Moreover, the purity of the energy seas directly relates to the quality of the golden core in the golden core stage and the nascent soul in the nascent soul stage. The golden core and nascent soul are critical factors in determining how far a cultivator can progress. The mother discovered that her child had gained consciousness and could converse, so she frequently guided and observed her offspring. Through these conversations, the child learned that her mother was the 9th princess of the 2nd generation of the Lake clan, named Lily Lake. Their current location was Dreamwake City, part of the Keys family. Her father's name was Martin Ocean. Her grandfather was Jonathan Keys, and her father had 2 elder brothers, 1 elder sister, and 2 siblings whose identities as sisters or younger sisters remained unclear. The Keys family in Dreamwake City was considered a mid-tier clan, with 3 golden core cultivators stationed within the family and nearly 100 foundation establishment experts. The eldest uncle was a late-stage foundation establishment alchemist and held significant influence, second only to the family head, ranking 5th in the clan. However, judging by Lily Lake's tone, her eldest uncle seemed to have a strained relationship with her father. Naturally, as a child, she thought, is a foundation establishment expert that impressive? When I go out, I'll be one too. Through her conversations with her mother, the child also discovered that she could speak various foreign languages, collectively referred to as beast language. This appeared to be the sole indelible mark in her bloodline. She could easily use her consciousness to communicate with nearby magical creatures like cats, dogs, and mice. Initially, things didn't go smoothly. She frightened a few creatures to death, leaving the little child upset for a long time. Under her mother's guidance, she eventually managed to communicate effectively with low-level magical beasts without causing any fatalities. At this point, the child had a new thought: when I go out, I won't fear getting lost anymore, I can just ask animals for directions. Surely, if her mother Fairy Lake knew this thought, she would shed tears of both laughter and frustration. Time flew by, and Lily Lake had been pregnant for 6 years. Finally, she heard her daughter say, "Mother, I've completed foundation establishment now. I can go out. Please prepare." Lily Lake carefully instructed her daughter on how to cooperate with her. As the night passed, the child, not wanting to draw too much attention, suppressed her cultivation to the 3rd level of chi refining, though in reality, she had already reached the peak of the early foundation establishment stage. Shortly after the child was born, the sky darkened with rolling clouds, as if a thunderstorm was imminent. Lily Lake, ignoring her own condition, quickly dressed and carried her child toward the mountains outside the city, sticking a few defensive talismans on her daughter along the way. While running, she urgently instructed, "Curl up. A smaller surface area increases your survival chances. Also, use spiritual energy to protect yourself." Although the child was young, she understood her mother's words, though speaking was still a bit difficult for her. Finding a relatively open area, Lily Lake set her daughter down and hid nearby to observe. She had resolved that, if necessary, she would use her demon power to help her daughter survive this tribulation, as that was the most important thing. Of course, she had other considerations. Firstly, this would make the lightning tribulations target solely her daughter, increasing her survival odds. Secondly, her involvement might only complicate matters. As the lightning tribulation was about to strike, a bolt, initially as thick as a bowl, strangely transformed into tiny threads, slowly wrapping around her daughter. The newborn seemed to be joyfully absorbing it. Lily Lake was astonished. What was happening? She had endured numerous lightning tribulations but had never witnessed such an unbelievable situation. Time passed, and after about a day, the tribulation clouds finally dissipated. The newborn lay naked on the ground, sound asleep. They used their spiritual sense to examine the baby's condition with hopeful hearts, only to discover that she was merely at the third level of chi refining. Considering the extended pregnancy period, this child was truly a disappointment. They also thought about the possibility of the baby hiding her cultivation level, but typically, one could only conceal up to one major realm. In other words, since they were at the golden core stage, for someone to hide their cultivation from them, they would need to be at least at the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, it would be impossible to escape their detection. Nascent soul stage? How could that be? Even they couldn't believe it. Could the Keys family possibly produce a baby born at the nascent soul stage? Ridiculous. This child might simply be plagued by karmic entanglements, which explained why she was struck by lightning. But that didn't seem right either. The baby appeared unharmed, which didn't align with the notion of divine punishment. This was indeed strange. After some discussion, the three of them decided to observe further. After all, if they were mistaken, this child could be a rare talent, and it wouldn't make sense to waste such potential on baseless assumptions. The baby paid no attention to them and instead used her divine sense to communicate with her mother, who had rushed to her side. She smugly said, "Those three old geezers couldn't see through my true strength." Meanwhile, Daisy Lake busied herself with making new swaddling clothes for the baby, afraid she might catch a chill. She carefully reminded her daughter, "Don't let others see your primal chaos true flame. If they do, you'll get into big trouble." The baby replied with a serious expression, "Then, should I use the lightning that just struck me? Or maybe ordinary fire? I can conjure those too." Daisy Lake broke into a sweat. She had long known her daughter was unusual, but this level of peculiarity truly shocked her. Daisy Lake silently resolved to raise and educate this child properly. At the very least, she couldn't allow her daughter to suffer losses or bring shame to the Lake clan. Upon returning to the Keys family, the baby was given the name Clara Ocean. Clara obediently allowed them to make arrangements for her, but when certain uncles tried to secretly cause her trouble, she didn't hold back. She directly threw a few lightning balls at their noses. Leaving their faces charred black, Clara giggled gleefully. As for those who harbored ill intentions, after suffering even once, they no longer dared to act recklessly. They truly weren't sure how much power this little girl possessed. The same issue persisted: if one had potential, they would surely be nurtured by the family; if not, there was no rush for the family to intervene. Clara Ocean didn't care about their thoughts. Every day, apart from drinking milk, she pretended to sleep to absorb spiritual energy. However, in the eyes of others, she was merely eating and sleeping, then sleeping and eating. In the blink of an eye, 100 days passed, and it was time for the draw. The table was filled with various items. Clara Ocean immediately set her eyes on an inconspicuous cauldron. Upon using her spiritual sense to probe, she discovered that this cauldron held mysteries. It was a treasure. She claimed it. After all, it wasn't her fault they couldn't recognize its value. Clara Ocean crawled straight over, clutching the cauldron tightly while also using her spiritual sense to examine the other items. Most were ordinary, but in the corner of the table, there was a book that seemed somewhat unusual as well. Thus, a comical scene unfolded: a tiny baby dragging a cauldron as big as her own head, laboriously crawling toward the corner of the table. Everyone watched in confusion. When Clara Ocean finally reached the book, she looked satisfied as she picked it up, leaned against the cauldron, and began flipping through it, seemingly just looking at the illustrations. However, anyone who tried to take it from her was met with a lightning orb thrown their way. Since Clara Ocean was still a baby, her lightning orbs were only as small as beads, making them easy to throw without much effort. The orbs, pure lightning energy, couldn't be absorbed by anyone. Seeing this, the 3 Golden Core stage elders waved their hands, declaring both the cauldron and the book belonged to Clara Ocean. They also instructed her father, Martin Ocean, to retrieve several alchemy books from the family's collection for her to study. If the family could nurture an alchemist, it would be a divine blessing. Chapter 3, Part 3, The Eerie 100 Beasts Illustration. Clara Ocean chose a rather eerie book titled Myriad Beasts Illustrated Codex. Upon returning home, Daisy Lake, with a puzzled tone, asked her daughter, "Clara, why did you pick this book?" After some thought, she added with spiritual sense, "Isn't this already part of the inheritance?" The mother and daughter primarily communicated using beast tongue. Even if someone overheard, it wouldn't matter, as no one could understand it. At most, they'd think it was the squeaking of mice. Clara Ocean replied to her mother using her spiritual sense, "The book has many uncles and aunties trapped inside. I want to release them." Hearing this, Daisy Lake examined the book thoroughly using her spiritual sense once more. This time, she indeed noticed the peculiar situation. She then looked at her daughter with a puzzled expression. This was far too bizarre. What kind of child was this? Since her birth, Clara Ocean had noticed that her father seemed indifferent toward her and her mother, often disappearing for long periods. Daisy Lake, still confused, asked her daughter, "Can you release them?" Clara Ocean nodded enthusiastically, though she wasn't entirely sure if she could truly free those uncles and aunties. Seeing her daughter's somewhat hesitant demeanor, Daisy Lake cautiously asked, "Is your power not strong enough?" Clara Ocean shook her head, then nodded, "This place is unsuitable, the energy is weak as well." Clara Ocean casually picked up that book. The two exchanged glances and both broke into a peculiar smile. Understanding her daughter's intent, she found another book to exchange, then swapped the book covers. Afterward, Clara Ocean made a gesture of stroking a beard, causing Daisy Lake to burst into delighted laughter. This type of 100 Beasts illustration was essentially a cheap item among cheap items, naturally easy to counterfeit. Using a random excuse, Daisy Lake held Clara Ocean and left. After a month of traveling, they arrived at the edge of a cliff. For some reason, Daisy Lake kept throwing stones down the cliff and even instructed Clara Ocean to use her magic to hurl the stones. Clara Ocean obediently followed her mother's instructions. After throwing a few stones, suddenly a man with ears on his head and a tail on his back appeared by the cliff. He looked at Daisy Lake and spoke indifferently, "Ninth Princess, you shouldn't have returned." "Brother Mark Evans, this time I've brought my daughter with me because I need to meet the Emperor," she said, taking out the book and continuing, "My daughter obtained this by drawing lots. Inside, many demon clan members are sealed. You know I can no longer use demonic powers, so the only plan is to ask the Emperor to release these seniors. My daughter is still young, even if she has the will, she doesn't have the strong demonic energy needed to sustain this." Hearing herself mentioned, Clara Ocean waved her small hand, clearly trying to draw attention to her presence. Mark Evans glanced at her and sneered, "Stage 3 of chi refinement. Wasn't it said that she took 6 years just to be born?" Clara Ocean secretly felt a bit annoyed with Mark Evans, but her mother comforted her, and she decided not to argue with him. If she had misjudged someone, who could she blame? Her cultivation technique was all about concealing her strength, and very few could accurately assess her abilities. Mark Evans led them into a space sealed by a barrier. After walking for a while, they arrived at a spacious hall. Mark Evans approached the main seat, where a dignified man dressed in a fur robe sat, and said, "Your Majesty, the 9th Princess has brought her half-demon daughter from the Foxy clan." They carry a copy of the 100 Beasts illustration and claim they need assistance releasing the beasts inside. After the guards introduced them, the dignified man naturally used his divine sense to inspect the situation seriously. Indeed, it was as they said. Just as he was about to use demon magic to investigate further, Clara Ocean leaped onto the table before him. In her current form, she appeared as a child wearing a red apron, without fox ears or a tail, completely human in appearance. Daisy Lake was about to stop her, but Clara Ocean pulled the book toward herself a few times before letting it fall to the ground. At that moment, a male voice rang out, "Xiaojiu, why does your child appear human? If you can't bear it, don't bring her here." Daisy Lake gave her daughter a puzzled look. Meanwhile, Clara Ocean was calculating whether jumping off the table would break her legs, it seemed too high. Seeing her daughter's reaction, Daisy Lake gently picked Clara Ocean up and placed her on the ground. Clara Ocean dragged the book a short distance away. After confirming that no demons were watching, she patted the book. A golden light flashed, and a cat-like demon beast emerged from within. This was the demon clan, where beast language was the primary mode of communication. After some clumsy exchanges, the fox demons behind them finally understood, to break the seal, one needed spiritual power. Using demon power would only severely injure the caster. The fox demons all shot unfriendly looks at Mark Evans, leaving him feeling awkward. Through the summoned cat demon, Clara Ocean roughly understood the book's situation. It was more complicated than she had anticipated. To free the beings inside, Clara Ocean would likely have to intervene personally. The first condition was a hybrid human-demon bloodline, meaning a half-demon human. The second was a cultivation level of at least the nascent soul stage. Well, that was still a long way off. With Clara Ocean's current foundation establishment cultivation, she could only summon small companions like this to assist in battle. Following the cat demon's guidance, she formed a contract with the book. She then summoned all the small companions she could, asking if any were willing to serve the Lake clan or form a soul contract with the clan, ensuring they would never become enemies. One by one, Clara Ocean removed the restrictive spells binding them and restored their freedom. After completing this task, she was utterly exhausted, collapsing onto the table like a dead dog. She rested for a long time before recovering, then looked at Henry Lake with a smug, teasing expression. Everyone around was stunned. The beasts she released were all below the Golden Core stage. Henry Lake curiously asked Daisy Lake, "What is this little girl's cultivation level?" Daisy Lake looked at her and honestly replied, "Just foundation establishment." Swish, 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 all eyes turned to Clara Ocean. The reason was simple, no one could discern her true cultivation level. Naturally, Henry Lake's question indicated he couldn't see through it either. Clara Ocean softly asked her mother, "Mother, what's the cultivation level of the person in the middle?" Daisy Lake glared at her daughter, pretending to be displeased as she lightly tapped Clara Ocean's nose and said, "You should call him grandfather. Your grandfather is a great demon at the soul formation stage." Clara Ocean felt elated upon hearing this. Her unfettered scroll, even a great demon at the soul formation stage couldn't detect it, it was reliable, so reliable. Seeing her mischievous smile, the surrounding great demons couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Daisy Lake awkwardly remarked, "Father, this child seems to only be able to cultivate human Dao techniques, but her cultivation is still very strong." The previously discordant voice sounded again, "Strong? How strong could it possibly be? Maybe just a little better at hiding." As soon as he finished speaking, a lightning strike hit his head. His originally pristine appearance instantly turned pitch black, with black smoke rising from his mouth. Clara Ocean excitedly waved her small hand, pretending to boast, "Bullseye, I'm really strong." The surrounding demons, after recovering from their shock, could only helplessly look at the cheerful Clara Ocean. Henry Lake's eyes lit up as he asked, "Lightning cultivator? Very rare. Daisy Lake cautiously explained, she has the profound fox physique. These lightning bolts are remnants from her tribulation, which she keeps around just to play with. The demons were astonished. The so-called profound fox physique could cultivate and evolve all types of magic systems. Demons with this physique could, to some extent, cultivate to Ninetales. However, could something like tribulation lightning even remain? And even if it could, keeping it to play with, this kind of upbringing was far too reckless. That stuff could kill someone. Even if it didn't kill demons, it could still be deadly. Clara Ocean looked at them in confusion, sitting on the ground, raising her hand to speak. Nine-tailed fox, inheritance. Nine-tailed fox. The little girl spoke with doubt, as if she didn't understand. Weren't they all nine-tailed? How big could the difference be? This time, even Daisy Lake was astonished. She looked at her daughter with a strange expression before hesitantly asking, You're saying, the inherited memory you received is of a nine-tailed fox. Clara Ocean looked at her mother with some confusion. She really wanted to blurt out, aren't you a nine-tailed fox too? Seeing her daughter's puzzled gaze, Daisy Lake felt utterly helpless. Daisy Lake experienced a feeling of joy mixed with tears. Naturally, she could see her daughter's confusion. Stroking her daughter's head, she said, Your mother is a profound fox, not a nine-tailed fox. Seeing her daughter still looking bewildered, she patiently explained, Profound foxes, though they have 9 tails, only have 1 life. Nine-tailed foxes, on the other hand, have 9 lives, and their combat power is also much stronger. Clara Ocean turned her head to look behind herself but didn't see anything resembling tails. At this moment, Henry Lake asked, What is her innate gift? Daisy Lake's lips twitched as she replied, Humanization. In principle, you can just treat her as a human. If you want to call her fox transformation, the difficulty level is indeed much higher. The surrounding members of the demon clan wanted to say something but, seeing the current prince still puffing smoke from his mouth, wisely swallowed their words. Henry Lake was clearly extremely disappointed with this innate gift. He tentatively asked, What conditions are needed for fox transformation? Daisy Lake replied with some indifference, You wouldn't want a 9-tailed fox with 9 tails going berserk and uncontrollable, would you? The demons felt as if crows flew over their heads, leaving a trail of ellipses in the air. A mad fox was already terrifying enough, let alone one with 9 tails. How could the demons survive that? The most dreadful part was that this crazy 9-tailed fox would also have 9 lives. That, wouldn't it mean annihilation? It would practically be the common enemy of all living creatures. The idea of turning her into a real fox was immediately abandoned. How crazy would one have to be to do such a thing? At this moment, Clara Ocean wasn't in the mood to listen to their chatter. She was deeply engrossed in playing with the book in her hands. Inside the book, on the pages where drawings of creatures used to be, they were now completely blank. Feeling curious, she placed the alchemy furnace she had obtained earlier onto the book. Unexpectedly, the furnace transformed into an illustration within the book. Moreover, she discovered that she could place her shoes on the page as well. It seemed that each page of the book contained an equivalent amount of space. As long as there was enough room, she could store a considerable number of items inside. Observing her studying the book, and seeing the cauldron appear and disappear, everyone naturally realized that the book was a treasure. Hashtag Chapter 4, Episode 4, Don't Bully Children. Clara Ocean sensed their somewhat envious gazes and immediately poured cold water on their hopes. This book is specifically designed for half-demons. For humans, it's just an ordinary book. Even if you sprinkle blood essence on it, it won't leave any mark. The released demons nodded, affirming that the book was indeed only for half-demons. Clara Ocean continued, If members of the demon clan touch it, it's even worse. The Taoist runes on it will injure you, possibly leaving you crippled. Around her, the demons who had just been freed nodded again. Mia Carter, ever the troublemaker, added fuel to the fire. it could even kill you. I've heard that if you seriously pat it a few times with your claws, you'll end up here with us as company." The fox demon, seeing the situation, said no more. After staying with the demon clan for 2 days, Clara Ocean and her mother returned to Dreamwake City. At the city market, Daisy Lake purchased a spirit mansion and a plot of spirit fields for Clara Ocean, both crafted using chi refining techniques. Clara Ocean also wanted a bed and some cookware, naturally for herself and her mother. As for Martin Ocean, her father, who was rarely seen even once in 10 days, the mother and daughter automatically dismissed him. While shopping, Daisy Lake accidentally discovered Martin Ocean with a female cultivator, and they seemed quite close. Seeing her daughter's inclination to unleash her wrath, Daisy Lake comforted Clara a little, and the two returned to the Keys family. On the way back, Clara Ocean kept asking Daisy Lake, "Do you still think giving up your cultivation was worth it?" Every time she asked, Daisy Lake would only respond by patting her head. Seeing that Daisy Lake had no intention of answering, Clara Ocean sulked and went to sleep. She possessed the innate talent of the demon clan, allowing her to absorb spiritual energy while sleeping, though her ability to convert it was a bit slow. Life continued to pass peacefully. Daisy Lake did not ask Martin Ocean about his relationship with the nun, but deep down, she always harbored a sense of unease. Martin Ocean's cultivation level was currently only at the peak of chi refining, while the nun seemed to have reached the peak of foundation establishment. The gap between the two was not something that could simply be bridged by love. Since learning that Clara Ocean had the nine-tailed fox physique, Daisy Lake had taught her some methods to control her abilities and precautions during cultivation. Their life became more orderly. After all, for Daisy Lake, her daughter was the most important thing at the moment. She also thought optimistically, so long as her daughter had a promising future, even if this place couldn't accommodate her, the Lake clan would take care of her in her stead. In the blink of an eye, Clara Ocean was already 3 years old. Now, she could toddle around the courtyard. In the eyes of outsiders, her cultivation was still at the 3rd level of chi refining, but she had actually reached the peak of this stage. However, her cultivation speed was likened to that of a crawling turtle. The 3 Golden Core seniors who initially intended to pay attention to Clara Ocean had lost interest, leaving the mother and daughter to fend for themselves. 2 uncles secretly plotted to eliminate the mother and daughter but, after being struck by lightning several times, decided to ignore the existence of the little girl and refrain from excessively cutting their daily expenses. The reason wasn't out of kindness. Whenever they reduced the expenses, not only would a 3-year-old child chase them around the courtyard, but their storage warehouses would also mysteriously get robbed. On more than one occasion, while the uncles were discussing something, they witnessed a swarm of rats, thousands of them, brazenly march past, carrying spirit stones from their bodies to the mother and daughter's room. Since Clara Ocean only took the standard weekly allowance for the 2 of them, they had no grounds to complain. The Golden Core elders in the family also assumed she was a servant summoned from some mysterious book and thus did not reprimand Clara Ocean. In reality, rats, snakes, cockroaches, centipedes, and other creatures within 100-mile radius of the Keys family were all under Clara Ocean's control. Not to mention, her household was protected by a powerful tribulation-crossing demon beast. Even for the little Clara Ocean, these 1st and 2nd level beasts wouldn't dare offend her. Moreover, whenever there was delicious food, Clara Ocean would share it with them, of course, only when her mother wasn't present. Otherwise, no creature dared to act recklessly in front of Daisy Lake. When Daisy Lake discovered this, aside from giving Clara Ocean a symbolic spanking, she didn't do much else. She even invited the surrounding little beasts to a grand feast as a gesture of gratitude. As a result, the nearby little demon beasts became even more cautious around Clara Ocean. They had come to understand that this fairy lake was clearly a mother beast protecting her cub. Though she always claimed her child was mischievous, they certainly didn't believe her. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. The father, who had been absent for a long time, finally found his way home. However, it was not for a heartfelt reunion but to discuss marrying another woman. Moreover, to please his prospective bride, he even wanted to expel Daisy Lake and her daughter from the Keyes family. After mediation by the Golden Corps elders, it was finally agreed that Daisy Lake and her daughter could stay, but their expenses were significantly reduced. In their eyes, one was a disciple with no talent for cultivation, and the other was a mere mortal, both deemed worthless. This time, Martin Ocean intended to marry a young woman who was on the verge of reaching the Golden Corps stage. However, since Clara Ocean was still too young, their plan was to wait until she turned 10, after which they would leave the mother and daughter to fend for themselves. Upon hearing this news, Daisy Lake rarely cried but did so the entire day. Seeing her mother in tears, Clara Ocean took out a few pills she had crafted, intending to cheer her up by offering them as candy. When Daisy Lake saw the spirit-gathering pill in her daughter's hand, she stopped crying and looked at her in astonishment. "Where did this pill come from?" she asked. Clara Ocean proudly replied, "I made it. There are plenty more. If they kick us out, humph, they'll be the ones to regret it. I can even refine Golden Corps stage pills now." Seeing her mother's disbelief, Clara casually took out another pill. As Clara began to produce pill after pill, from Chi refining stage to foundation establishment stage, and even Golden Corps stage, Daisy Lake was utterly speechless. She immediately recognized the immense value of each pill. Once again, her perception of her daughter shifted entirely. This child of hers, it seemed, was truly beyond comprehension. It was a spirit enhancement pill, which, for humanity's alchemists, was already incredibly difficult to refine. It was a type of pill specifically used to enhance the cultivation of Golden Corps stage cultivators. Once again, she was astonished by her daughter's abilities and, at the same time, very pleased with her daughter's mindset. Truly befitting of the Lake clan, knowing how to conceal one's talents. In truth, Clara Ocean wasn't intentionally hiding her talent, she simply wasn't aware of how valuable she was as an alchemist. Of course, her disdain for the elders was also one of the reasons. Daisy Lake chuckled and asked, "Why don't you tell the elders?" Clara Ocean pouted and replied, "A bunch of blind old men, none of them are good. I don't want to risk my life for them." Daisy Lake was momentarily speechless. All right, she had overestimated her daughter. This girl simply couldn't stand her own relatives. Daisy Lake took a deep breath and said, "I can't use this stuff, it's useless to me." Clara Ocean then asked seriously, "Can you still undergo tribulation to become Fairy Lake?" Hearing this question, a sorrowful expression briefly appeared on Daisy Lake's face. She suppressed her thoughts before earnestly replying, "First, in the Lake clan, we only face the immortal ascension tribulation when we reach 9 tails. Only by succeeding can we ascend to the higher realm and become immortals. A 9-tailed Lake clan member is equivalent to a scattered immortal for cultivators. Second, your father and I fell in love, which is considered a violation of heavenly rules. My tribulation will be even more troublesome because of it." Clara Ocean, mimicking an adult, rubbed her chin thoughtfully before saying, "So, how confident are you in overcoming the heart demon tribulation? I've heard that the heavenly tribulation includes wind, fire, and thunder tribulations, plus the heart demon tribulation, right?" Daisy Lake nodded. Clara Ocean looked at her intently and said, "I can help you with the first 3 tribulations. You can slowly temper your body afterward, but for the final tribulation, no one can help you." Daisy Lake chuckled and patted her daughter's head, saying, "Clara is the best, I know." However, her tone was entirely coaxing, without any sincerity at all. Clara Ocean felt indignant and said very seriously, "I'm not joking. When I was born and struck by lightning, I discovered a new ability. I can adjust the intensity of the energy from tribulation lightning. Although the total amount of energy cannot be reduced, I can convert one strike into 10 or even 100 smaller strikes, but the level of injury remains the same as a single strike. In other words, with the recovery ability of the demon clan, if controlled properly, after you pass the first 3 tribulations, there won't be any issues. I can even transform them into energy spheres and store them for gradual experimentation. Clara Ocean continued, with a hint of regret, my true fire can also help overcome the heart demon tribulation, but unfortunately, it only works for males. Daisy Lake, this 1,000-year-old fox demon, was once again stunned by her daughter. According to Clara's words, she was practically a tribulation cheating machine. Seeing her mother's skeptical expression, Clara Ocean threw out another shocking statement, isn't this just a skill that every 9-tailed fox should have? In the end, Daisy Lake couldn't hold it in anymore and repeatedly slapped her forehead, saying, an essential skill for 9-tailed foxes? Why don't I know about this? I'm sure no 9-tailed fox knows about it. Who taught you this? Seeing her mother slightly angry, Clara Ocean scratched her head and asked, oh, is this a natural talent of the Crow Teeth clan? Daisy Lake asked in frustration, what does this have to do with the Crow Teeth? Clara Ocean replied very seriously, the method I mentioned is a variation of a curse. After casting the curse, the lightning strikes that come down at once will split into multiple layers, making them absorbable by the body. Of course, I also used a bit of healing ability at that time. Daisy Lake sighed helplessly, this curse technique is highly unpredictable. Clara Ocean looked at her mother skeptically and uttered a sentence that made Daisy Lake nearly spit blood, as long as I am sincere, no, as long as I really want the curse to work, it always does. Daisy Lake covered her left eye with her hand, unable to bear looking at her strange daughter. Clara Ocean said with grievance, I'm telling the truth. The success rate is very high. Otherwise, why do the little demons around here listen to me so well? Actually, they're scared because I used them for experiments. Daisy Lake was speechless once again. Finally, she weakly said, don't bully the little demons. After all, they are part of the demon clan. A string of black lines appeared above Clara Ocean's head. This time, it was her turn to be speechless. ### Chapter 5, Return to the Lake Clan. Clara Ocean sincerely said, every time I help them dispel it, I've never caused any fatalities. Daisy Lake remained silent. Her own daughter was rarely bullied, if something displeased her, she'd cast a curse. Who could endure that? Daisy Lake excitedly envisioned the future, which mostly involved her daughter bullying others' children. After a while, Daisy Lake weakly asked, girl, why don't you come back to the demon clan with me? Humans will see you as an outcast. Clara Ocean thought for a moment and replied, no need. If I truly can't survive here anymore, you can go back yourself, and I'll help you pass the heavenly tribulation. Seeing Daisy Lake about to speak again, Clara Ocean waved her hand seriously and continued, that place isn't suitable for my cultivation. Staying there wouldn't be comfortable. Among humans, I can gain more resources. Instead of wasting the demon clan's resources, why not waste the human clan's? What do you think? Daisy Lake was utterly convinced, both in heart and mind. What kind of logic was this? Could there really be a generational gap between the two? This time, it was Clara Ocean's turn to pat her mother's head. She sincerely said, after all, they already want us gone. Wasting a little more of their resources, well, not completely stripping them of their wealth, is already giving them face. Daisy Lake knew that her daughter's idea of stripping wealth meant commanding nearby level 1 and level 2 beasts to steal everywhere. Imagining powerful cultivators dumbfounded as a swarm of rats caused chaos, she couldn't help but laugh. In truth, she realized her daughter had excellent leadership qualities. In such a short time, within a 1,000-mile radius, every little demon spoke of her daughter's imposing presence. Since it was a realm of minor demons, who would dare say Clara Ocean wasn't dominant? That would be a death wish. She could erase dissenting voices in an instant. Even if she didn't destroy them, she could silence them, leaving them with no choice but to obey. Clara Ocean smugly said, see? That's how it's done. Even if they cry, make sure it's them crying, not us. Daisy Lake hugged Clara Ocean tightly and gave her a kiss. Perhaps finding the taste delightful, Daisy Lake kissed her daughter once more. Though Daisy Lake felt this method wasn't something every nine-tailed fox could replicate, she still cautiously inquired further. After obtaining her daughter's approval, she decided to spread the technique throughout the demon realm. Clara Ocean fearlessly said, "Go ahead and spread it. But let me warn you, apparently, even the Crow clan doesn't have a high success rate with this. Be careful not to mess up and get yourselves killed." Hee hee. After speaking, Clara Ocean flashed a radiant smile. Yet, why did Daisy Lake, a nine-tailed fox, suddenly feel a chill down her spine? Daisy Lake was at a loss for words. After thinking for a moment, she advised her daughter, "About that heart demon tribulation method you mentioned earlier, don't tell anyone else about it." Clara Ocean giggled and said, "Only you know." Daisy Lake nodded. After pondering for a while, Daisy Lake asked, "If it's just about overcoming the heart demon tribulation, I'm confident I can handle most of it. But I'm curious, how do you help others pass the heart demon tribulation?" Clara Ocean chuckled softly. A small flame ignited in her hand before quickly extinguishing. In an instant, Daisy Lake understood. That flame was the chaotic holy flame fused with a trace of clear heart-glazed fire. No wonder her daughter was so confident, she was practically a cheat artifact for tribulation crossing. Daisy Lake thought for a moment and said, "I'm confident about passing the heart demon tribulation. You can stay by my side and control the flame, hitting me lightly when needed. The damage won't be severe, but it'll play a critical role." Clara Ocean nodded seriously. Clara Ocean tilted her head, pondering another issue. If something happens and you successfully pass the tribulation, shouldn't you find a corpse to cover up? Otherwise, I might run into some trouble. Daisy Lake smiled calmly and said, "I have arranged everything properly." Indeed, she had already made the arrangements. Since arriving in the mortal world, she found a recently deceased person, transformed them to match her appearance, and established a human form. As for the beautiful corpse, it had always been sealed by her. The next day, Daisy Lake took Clara Ocean to the cliff outside the Lake clan to meet Henry Lake again. Daisy Lake recounted her daughter's discovery, and Clara Ocean didn't forget to add, "The curse energy of the Crow Teeth clan is not absolute. When testing it, be careful. It wouldn't be good if someone dies from playing around recklessly." The surrounding fox demons shook their heads silently. Should they say he was too strange or too unreliable? Henry Lake, however, had a different perspective. Holding the manual Daisy Lake handed him, he couldn't help but think more about how to harm the Bird clan and maximize benefits. Henry Lake, using what he thought was his most gentle tone, asked, "Girl, how confident are you in helping with the tribulation?" Daisy Lake replied darkly, "For my mother, I'm 90% confident. It mainly depends on her heart demon tribulation. As for others, demons or whatever, it depends on my mood. If I'm in a bad mood, killing them wouldn't be a big deal." The surrounding demons silently wiped their sweat, thinking that relying on her mood was even less reliable than the curse itself. Clara Ocean sincerely added, "I'm not exaggerating. If I want to, even a tribulation master can be killed in an instant. My curse accuracy rate is 100%, it's just the effect after the hit that varies. I can easily turn instant death into a slow drain." The surrounding fox demons nodded knowingly, thinking, as expected of our Lake clan child, truly sinister. Clara Ocean continued, "Henry Lake, if my mother successfully overcomes her tribulation and returns here, you all must not bully her. If I find out, I'll bully you to death." None of the surrounding fox demons took her words as a joke. A child who could casually throw lightning orbs around, expecting her not to bully others seemed a bit far-fetched. Henry Lake wiped his sweat and looked up at Daisy Lake, asking, "What's wrong? Is life not going well?" Daisy Lake didn't want to answer, but Clara Ocean quickly spoke up, father wants to marry another woman and drive us away. What poor judgment. She's just someone about to reach Golden Core, right? I'm also about to reach Golden Core, okay? And how old am I? Why marry an old demoness into the house? The surrounding fox demons were quite displeased with Clara Ocean's term, old demoness, but none of them wanted to risk attracting any curses. In reality, Henry Lake still cared a lot about Daisy Lake and her daughter, so most of the Lake clan demons knew that this new half-demon member of their clan had a curse accuracy rate so high that even the Crow Teeth clan demons avoided her. Clara Ocean tilted her head, thinking for a moment. Then said, Henry Lake, if I have nowhere to live in the future, can I change my surname to Lake? Henry Lake smiled and said, if you have nowhere to go, just follow your mother back here. Clara Ocean shook her head and replied, the demonic energy here is too strong, it's not suitable for me to live in. I need to stay on the human side. You don't have to worry about me, just take care of my mother. If I stay here too long, I'll get irritable. It feels like staying here will make me lose control. King Lake looked at Clara Ocean a few times with a strange expression, then asked uncertainly, how did you survive alone? I casually took out a few bottles and jars, piling them in front of King Lake, then said with a slightly embarrassed tone, I know these things are useless to you, but they're enough to cover my living expenses. King Lake suspiciously opened one of the bottles. The strong medicinal scent stunned the nearby fox demons. Marrow cleansing pill. Clara Ocean nodded seriously. King Lake continued to ask, you refined this? Clara Ocean nodded again. King Lake smiled, a smile filled with a hint of meaning. After a long time, the old fox chuckled self-deprecatingly, I was mistaken. Even I, an old fox, was mistaken, let alone those humans. Clara Ocean seized the opportunity to negotiate, King Lake. King Lake chuckled and asked, don't you want to call me grandfather? Clara Ocean thought for a moment and then said, if it pleases you, I don't mind. As long as it doesn't bring trouble to you, call me whatever you like. Let's not talk about that anymore, I'd like to make a deal with you. King Lake laughed even more joyfully. A deal? Let me hear it. Clara Ocean carefully chose her words and said, the demon clan has been fighting humans for a long time. Surely, you've accumulated quite a few human cultivation manuals, haven't you? Could I take a look at them? My request isn't too high, just books related to alchemy, artifact crafting, talisman creation, beret formations, and so on. She tilted her head, thinking for a moment before continuing, they don't have to be originals, copies are fine. But could you make the handwriting resemble human script? That way, if I run out of money, I can sell the books to survive. King Lake laughed and said, that's easy. I'll have someone gather them for you. Later, you can take them as you wish. These things are just spoils of war to us and completely useless. Clara Ocean nodded and continued, as compensation, I can provide your people with pills on a long-term basis. Of course, you'll need to supply the ingredients, and I'll handle the refining. As for improving my alchemy skills, you'll have to give me materials to practice with. Naturally, I'll keep some of the pills I refine. Even though they're not of much use to me, they're still a common currency. King Lake laughed even more heartily and said seriously, that's not a problem. According to the market price for alchemists, your grandfather will buy from you. Clara Ocean shook her head and said, children carrying too much money are prone to getting robbed. I don't need wealth. You can send someone to pick up the pills from me. If I ever need money, I'll trick some humans for it. Of course, the premise of this agreement is that I must have the freedom to act. If I'm ever controlled by some force and unable to go out, you should prioritize safety above all else. King Lake smiled and nodded in agreement. Thus, Clara Ocean was brought to the house her mother once lived in, along with a pile of medicinal materials. Looking at the stack of ingredients towering over her, Clara Ocean felt utterly helpless. Daisy Lake shyly said, the demon clan has plenty of herbs, but there are very few demons who know how to refine them. Clara Ocean pointed at the pile of herbs angrily and said, then at least they should sort them for me, right? With this mess, by the time I finish sorting, it'll be morning. Daisy Lake broke into a sweat and went out to call some servants in to help sort the herbs. Meanwhile, I began refining the simplest and most practical pill, Spirit Gathering Pill. Heading to a small adjacent room, Clara Ocean took 10 portions of Spirit Gathering Pill ingredients, instructed the servants to guard the door and not disturb her, and then began refining the pills step by step according to the procedure. Hashtag Chapter 6, the 6th episode, Golden Core Tribulation. Clara Ocean was already very skilled at refining Spirit Gathering Pills. She could complete the process smoothly without reversing time. Refining 10 portions at once posed no major issues. However, if she tried to refine more portions simultaneously, the success rate would drop significantly. As for the jade bottles used to store the pills, they were naturally provided by King Lake. Thus, Clara Ocean refined the pills batch by batch. By the next morning, several rows of jade bottles containing the pills were stacked in Daisy Lake's area. All the Spirit Gathering Pill ingredients had been refined. For other types of pills, Clara Ocean needed to rest before continuing. Back in her room, Clara Ocean, feeling exhausted, said to Daisy Lake, "Mother, I need to sleep for a while. I can't go on. The demonic energy here is a bit hard to convert, and my spiritual power is running low. If I don't rest, I'll collapse." Daisy Lake worriedly arranged for Clara Ocean to rest and assigned fox demons to guard her. The guards were all Daisy Lake's trusted confidants, absolutely reliable. After collecting the pills, Daisy Lake went to meet Henry Lake. Seeing Clara Ocean's overnight effort, Henry Lake was astonished. Did the girl not sleep at all? Daisy Lake gently replied, yes, she worked through the night. Her spiritual power wasn't sufficient, so she's resting now. The demonic energy here is a bit difficult for her to adapt to. By the way, next time you deliver ingredients, have the servants sort them beforehand. It'll be more convenient for her. She's not used to the demonic energy here, so it's understandable that she's a bit irritable. The nearby servants took note and promised to pay attention next time. Clara Ocean slept for 2 full days. Upon waking, she had a hearty meal and resumed refining pills. She discovered that although her spiritual power recovered very slowly in the demon clan's territory, her cultivation speed had increased significantly. It seemed true that where there is oppression, there is resistance. And so, Clara Ocean remained busy for nearly a month, eventually refining all the stored ingredients in the Lake clan's warehouse into pills ready for trade with humans. She also realized that she needed to leave soon. She wasn't sure if undergoing tribulation in the demon clan's territory would result in her being struck to death by lightning. Handing over all the pills to Henry Lake, Clara Ocean anxiously said, "For now, use these. The warehouse is out of ingredients. I have to return with Mother to gather more. When we're ready, we'll inform you." With that, she grabbed Daisy Lake and hurried off. Daisy Lake asked suspiciously, "Girl, what's wrong? You've seemed a bit off these past 2 days. Are you struggling to adapt to the demonic energy here?" Clara Ocean said reluctantly, "These past few days of refining pills have slightly increased my spiritual power. I feel like I'm about to be struck by lightning." The surrounding demons seemed a bit confused, but Daisy Lake's face immediately turned grim. She had witnessed her daughter's tribulation before, and it was definitely no joke. Henry Lake also sensed something was wrong and looked at his daughter with suspicion. Daisy Lake slapped her forehead and said, "If I'm not mistaken, this little girl is about to face the Golden Core tribulation." The surrounding demons collectively fell to the ground. Daisy Lake continued, "I must take her back. The demonic energy of the demon realm is not something she can fully control yet. This will significantly increase her chances of failure." Henry Lake, understanding the gravity of the situation, anxiously asked Daisy Lake, "Do you need me to prepare anything for you?" Clara Ocean interrupted, her expression fearless, and said, "At most, just help keep the onlookers in check. As long as no one interferes, I'll be fine." With that, a group of fox demons hurriedly rushed out of the demon clan's barrier. Barely 100 breaths after leaving the barrier, dark clouds began to gather above Clara Ocean. She searched for an isolated spot while regulating the spiritual energy within her body. Just as Clara Ocean managed to barely circulate the chaotic spiritual energy, heavenly lightning struck down. Clara Ocean stuck to her usual method, both communicating with the lightning and cursing it, demanding it transform into lightning balls. 3 days passed quickly, and the spot where she initially stood had turned into a deep pit. Clara Ocean stood at the bottom of the pit, looking composed, though she couldn't help but feel frustrated. How was she supposed to climb out? Looking up at the sky, Clara Ocean noticed the disciples of the Lake Clan watching from afar. She decisively raised her voice and yelled for help. While the demons were still worried about Clara Ocean's survival, they suddenly heard a loud cry echoing from the deep pit in the distance, "Help! I can't climb up." All the fox demons watching stumbled awkwardly. Daisy Lake blushed, feeling slightly embarrassed. A circle of heads quickly gathered around the pit. Henry Lake said helplessly, "Little girl, shouldn't a golden core stage cultivator be able to fly by now?" Clara Ocean replied irritably, "Give me a sword. Only nascent soul cultivators can fly. I'm not a sword cultivator, nor do I have any magical artifacts. How am I supposed to fly? Stop rambling and find a fox to carry me up." The group of fox demons broke out in cold sweat. Finally, a 5-tailed fox jumped to Clara Ocean's side and gestured for her to climb onto its back. Once she got on, the fox proudly raised its paw and began climbing step by step. Clara Ocean was utterly frustrated. Were they mocking her for not having claws? Seeing Clara Ocean's annoyed expression, everyone burst into laughter. It was truly amusing. Before calling for help, Clara Ocean had already cleaned herself up, so at least she still looked neat and adorable. When Henry Lake saw her, he asked, "Why did your golden core tribulation have so much lightning?" Clara Ocean casually replied, "I have a lot of golden cores, 9, to be exact." The group of fox demons collectively fell over again. Could anyone explain what was going on? Whether human or demon, wasn't there supposed to be only one golden core or one demon core? What kind of trick was this child playing? Henry Lake inquired curiously, "So, how's your current combat strength?" Clara Ocean scratched her head and replied, "My combat strength has nothing to do with rank. Rank only speeds up the fulfillment of curses. I never engage in close combat. Close combat is just bullying someone weaker than you. Mother always said safety comes first." Daisy Lake felt utterly wronged. When had she ever taught her daughter such a thing? What she meant was to avoid direct confrontation and only fight when victory was assured. But somehow, her daughter had completely twisted her teaching. In the minds of the fox demons, 2 words surfaced: shameless. Daisy Lake's face flushed red. Her daughter was truly one of a kind. Still, this was indeed the most reliable principle. Picking on someone stronger than yourself? That's just plain foolish. Seeing their reactions, Clara Ocean protested, "Hey, hey, hey. What's with those expressions? Come on, can you judge me by human standards? Why risk your life when there's an easier way? That's just dumb." The fox demons were speechless. Was this girl implying that the entire demon clan was brainless? That's called a challenge, isn't it? Clara Ocean, noticing their reactions, pouted and added, "Risking your life in a challenge doesn't make you brave, it makes you stupid, okay? Besides, as a rule, if I get hit, my curses automatically activate, leaving my opponent defenseless. At that point, I can beat them however I want. Better to make someone else cough up blood than to get beaten to the point of spitting blood myself. That's how I see it." The Fox demons were now utterly exasperated with this little oddball. Back in the main hall of the Lake clan, the Fox demons somehow produced a pile of bizarre human artifacts, dumping them on the ground like a heap of junk. Clara Ocean was free to choose from them. Henry Lake said, "Take whatever you like. These are spoils of war we don't have any use for." Clara Ocean asked bluntly, "Old Fox, aren't you afraid I'll take everything and sell it?" Henry Lake, with a sincere tone and a smile, replied, "Go ahead. If you can take it all, it's yours." Clara Ocean nearly fainted. It seemed the demon clan truly didn't value the human weapons they'd looted. And it made sense. Among the weakest of the demon clan, their physical strength was already on par with human magical tools and weapons. To them, human weapons were little more than decorative items. Rarely did a junior show interest in these items, let alone find them useful. Naturally, they were happy to dump them all on Clara Ocean, better than letting them gather dust. The fifth uncle added, "If you take them all, it saves us a trip to sell them back to the humans. After all, we just robbed them, so selling it back feels fitting." Hearing this, Clara Ocean couldn't help but pity those humans. How idle were these great demons, robbing people only to sell their belongings back to them. Clara Ocean coldly retorted, "Sell them yourselves. Kids aren't allowed to carry too much money, it might get stolen by bad people." Nicholas Wood, unafraid of death, said, Hey, you've already become a Golden Core Master, don't be so stingy." Clara Ocean gave Nicholas Wood a disdainful glance and said, "If you don't say anything, who would know I'm a Golden Core Master? I can eat and drink for free, why bother paying? Are you stupid? No one would charge a kid like me anyway." The group of demons smiled knowingly. Indeed, charging a child was utterly nonsensical. Surely, this girl could loudly declare, put it on the tab of Dreamwake City's The Keys family, or simply point to someone ahead and tell the waiter, "That person is my uncle." Nicholas Wood, meanwhile, was rolling on the ground without a shred of dignity, looking immensely delighted as he exclaimed, "Delicious, delicious. This little girl is so adorable, I like her, I like her." Seeing him rolling on the ground, Clara Ocean coldly remarked, "Be careful." As soon as she finished speaking, Nicholas Wood let out an "ah," and jumped up, looking aggrieved as he clutched his backside. Clara Ocean commented sharply, "Idiot, you've embarrassed the intelligence of the Lake clan. There are so many weapons on the ground, and yet you roll around. If they don't stab you, who will they stab? Even as a child, I wouldn't play such a ridiculous game. I utterly despise you." The entire hall of the Lake clan erupted in laughter. Nicholas Wood, however, was not the least bit embarrassed. He rubbed his backside and continued to act spoiled. Eventually, Clara Ocean selected a treasure resembling a multicolored flying ship, a high-class artifact with a vast medicinal field inside. Unfortunately, all the spiritual herbs within were already ruined. She also picked up a treasure shaped like a wine gourd. Catching a faintly fragrant aroma from its mouth, she immediately realized that all the pills inside had been consumed, rendering the gourd useless. As for weapons, Clara Ocean chose a set of golden needles, a set of poison needles, a set of acupuncture needles, a set of throwing knives, and 2 daggers. Nicholas Wood asked curiously, "Why choose daggers? The shorter the blade, the riskier it is." Chapter 7, the 7th episode, The Wedding Ceremony. Clara Ocean reluctantly decided to enlighten Nicholas Wood and responded, "In my place, there is no such thing as short. While Nicholas Wood was still pondering the meaning of her words, Clara Ocean's dagger was already pressed against his neck, leaving everyone stunned. Even though Nicholas Wood was the weakest in strength, the ease with which she approached him surprised everyone. Clara Ocean patiently added, "I possess quite a few auxiliary spells. With spatial and temporal magic, approaching anyone is too easy. My small stature makes me agile and easy to maneuver. As long as it can cut through flesh, all I need is a sharp claw." The Fox clan fell silent again. Clara Ocean, with an expectant look in her eyes, said, I heard that among the beast clans, the wind bloodline can produce delicious honey. Can you help me catch a few bees? With that, Daisy Lake pulled Clara Ocean along to search for honeybees. The mother-daughter pair of Daisy Lake ventured into a deep forest south of Dreamwake City. From afar, the area was filled with colorful flower fields. Following Daisy Lake's instructions, Clara Ocean howled twice, and immediately, a swarm of bees emerged from the flower fields. Clara Ocean quickly hid behind Daisy Lake, unwilling to risk getting stung and ruining her beautiful appearance. The swarm of bees gathered before Daisy Lake and her daughter. The leading bee transformed into a rather handsome man. He spoke, Lack Doan, it has been a long time. What brings you here this time? Daisy Lake first led her daughter to bow respectfully to the man before shyly saying, Owen Lewis, this is my daughter Clara. She wants to take a few honeybees to raise. Would that be possible? Owen Lewis glanced at Clara Ocean and casually summoned a dozen honeybees. He instructed them, from now on, you will follow this young lady, build a new hive, and live with her. The honeybees obeyed and flew over to Clara Ocean. Without hesitation, Clara Ocean divided the bees into two groups, placing some in each spirit mansion. Afterward, Clara Ocean inquisitively asked, Uncle, what do they usually eat? Owen Lewis smiled and replied, the sky leaf flowers here. Pick some to take with you. They feed on these, and the higher the grade of the flowers, the stronger we become. Clara Ocean nodded, taking out her 100 Beasts illustration. She flipped through it, pointed to some images of spirit flowers, and asked Owen Lewis, Uncle, can these spirit flowers stay here? Owen Lewis took a look and was astonished. The lowest among them was a nascent soul stage spirit flower. He chuckled and said, of course, it would be an honor for our Wind Clan. Clara Ocean wasted no time and released the spirit flowers, making them promise not to become enemies of the Lake Clan. Once everything was settled, they happily departed with honey in various flowers, heading back to the Keys family. Along the way, Clara Ocean cheerfully chatted with the two honeybees in her spirit mansion. Clara Ocean carefully inquired about their ranks, skills, habits, and preferences. She learned that the leader of these honeybees was named Oscar Lewis, who currently commanded them. The primary abilities of these spirit bees were reconnaissance and stealth. The only relief was that they were not one-time-use creatures. In other words, they wouldn't die immediately after stinging someone. However, they would be unable to fight again for a short period, which was understandable, they were still honeybees, after all. This was an inherent disadvantage. Daisy Lake and her daughter returned to the Keys family, but within 2 days, the grand wedding of Martin Ocean and another woman was held. It was then that Clara Ocean learned the woman's name was Rose Stevenson, reportedly an outer disciple of Dream River Mountain. Once she broke through to the Golden Core stage, she would become an inner disciple. In Daisy Lake's eyes, as a female cultivator, a practitioner who has not yet formed a Golden Core is insignificant. Even a Golden Core stage cultivator is merely fleeting like clouds. Without the combined efforts of 9 Golden Core cultivators, they fundamentally pose no threat to her. In reality, Clara Ocean underestimated her own destructive power. Later events proved that sometimes 1 + 1 is more than 2. The wedding proceeded according to the usual rituals. After paying respects to heaven and earth, it was time for the younger generation to serve tea. Clara Ocean disdainfully observed several Golden Core elders who awarded only a few lower-grade spiritual stones. She sneered at them before casually tossing the stones to a maid beside her. These old geezers are so stingy. Grandpa Ho gave middle-grade spiritual stones, yet they only gave a pitiful few lower-grade ones. Are they treating me like a beggar? Clara Ocean thought, once again confirming that these elders were blind fools. When it was time to serve tea to Rose Stevenson, her second aunt, Clara Ocean stared at her for a long moment, her face full of suspicion. Clara Ocean witnessed a series of bloody scenes, seemingly misfortunes brought upon the Keyes family by Rose Stevenson. It appeared that this woman carried significant issues. However, this wasn't Clara Ocean's concern. She was delighted to discover a new skill she could utilize. Rose Stevenson, instead of accepting the tea, slapped Clara Ocean's small face. Clara swiftly dodged back, causing the hot tea to splash directly onto Rose Stevenson's face, eliciting a shrill scream. The three Golden Corps elders nearby inhaled sharply. This young girl was truly ruthless. Rose Stevenson angrily exclaimed, You. Clara Ocean casually threw out an age-preserving pill and loudly declared, Age-preserving pill, consider it a reward for you. Her tone was domineering, exuding the aura of a spoiled princess. This demeanor of Clara Ocean stemmed from the indulgence of Grandpa Ho. After all, during her time at the Lake Clan, she was truly treated like a princess. When it was Rose Stevenson's turn to serve tea to Daisy Lake, Rose simply stood there, casually holding out the cup. Her demeanor was that of a superior elder. Those who understood knew she was serving tea, while those who didn't might think she was handing it to a servant. Clara Ocean grew impatient. This woman was truly insufferable. She shouted, Old hag, don't you know the rules? Kneel down and present the tea properly. Or do you not want your red envelope anymore? Rose Stevenson coldly replied, Little brat, weren't you taught how to speak to your elders? Clara Ocean completely ignored the troublesome second aunt. She nonchalantly pulled out a pale green jade bottle from her pouch, slowly poured out an essence condensation pill, and began tossing it up and down playfully. As she did so, she muttered, I was going to reward you if you behaved well, but since you don't need it, never mind. Rose Stevenson's eyes suddenly lit up. Though the time was brief and the distance far, she could confirm it was a middle-grade essence condensation pill. This was precisely the type of pill Rose Stevenson desperately needed. Despite traveling through several cities, she hadn't even come across a lower-grade essence condensation pill. Unexpectedly, during this mission to pair with a chi refining cultivator, she stumbled upon a middle-grade essence condensation pill. With this pill, Rose Stevenson could securely advance to the Golden Corps stage. Thinking of this, she hesitated no longer. She immediately knelt down, respectfully presented the tea, and even spoke many flattering words. Onlookers around shook their heads, marveling at the immense allure of a single pill. At this moment, the three Golden Corps elders were slightly stunned. What was happening here? A child they had dismissed so easily was now casually playing with an essence condensation pill. What shocked everyone even more was when Daisy Lake took a sip of tea and said, I've drunk your tea, so we're family now. Don't have any other intentions, let's live peacefully and harmoniously for the rest of our lives. Rose Stevenson obediently nodded, but her eyes couldn't hide the greed as she looked at Clara Ocean. Clara Ocean casually tossed the essence condensation pill to her like it was trash, while also throwing a disdainful glance at Martin Ocean. Though young, she could sense that this woman was deceitful. How could her father value such a person? Did he have poor judgment? It was truly an insult to her late mother's discerning gaze. Noticing the disdain in his daughter's eyes, Martin Ocean suddenly felt a pang of realization. The Grand Elder, with a kind demeanor, asked, Clara, where did you get that essence condensation pill? Clara Ocean, whose goodwill towards the Keyes family had already plummeted to zero, replied coldly, I picked up a bottle. Why? Pfft. Daisy Lake covered her mouth, laughing softly. She naturally understood that Clara must have secretly hidden it while practicing alchemy at the Lake Clan. As an alchemist herself, she knew such situations were common. At this point, the thoughts of those around them diverged. Picked up. What kind of luck would one need to just stumble upon an essence condensation pill? Stolen. Did this little girl even seem capable of such a thing? Just how impressive was this child? However, strangely, no one believed that Clara Ocean had refined the pill herself. After all, the little girl before them was only 3 years old, and her cultivation was merely at the peak of the chi refining stage. Stealing seemed implausible, but it was still more believable than her possessing alchemy skills. Seeing the greedy eyes of the three elders, Clara Ocean sneered at them and said in an icy tone, "What I pick up is mine." At this moment, the second elder spoke up, "Picked up? Where exactly? Didn't the family warehouse recently lose a bottle of mid-grade essence condensation pills?" Clara Ocean was enraged. How could there be such a shameless old man? She retorted disdainfully, "Stop spouting nonsense. Could the Keys family even possess high-grade essence condensation pills like this? If you did, with only 3 golden core cultivators in the family, wouldn't that be embarrassing? With your level of alchemy skills, I doubt you could even refine an essence condensation pill." The 2 elders flushed with embarrassment but still echoed that some pills had indeed gone missing. The Grand Elder added, "Stealing family pills without permission warrants expulsion from the family." Clara Ocean replied, "Fine. From now on, there will be no Clara Ocean in this world. I'll take my mother's surname. I'll be Clara Lake." After a heated exchange, the second elder slammed the table and declared, "Fine, leave the stolen item behind, and you may go." Clara Ocean smirked, turned to Daisy Lake, and the two walked away without a hint of hesitation. As Clara held the pill bottle in her hand, she casually tossed it behind her, aiming it slightly toward Rose Stevenson. Rose Stevenson and the 3 elders scrambled to grab it. At that moment, Clara Ocean cast a cold glance at Rose Stevenson. That glance didn't carry any oppressive force but contained a trace of spell power. Rose Stevenson's body froze, and the second elder instinctively struck her shoulder. Rose Stevenson immediately coughed up blood, and the Grand Elder seized the opportunity to snatch the pill bottle. Chapter 8, the 8th episode. Daisy Lake's tribulation at this moment. No one noticed the flicker of purple light in Daisy Lake's eyes, except for Clara Ocean beside her. The third elder, disregarding his dignity, directly searched Rose Stevenson's stiff body and retrieved the mid-grade essence condensation pill that Clara Ocean had previously rewarded her. He even justified it with a lofty tone, "These are stolen goods, that unfilial descendant has no right to distribute them." The first elder naturally placed the pill back into its original container, which now held a total of 5 essence condensation pills, 1 low-grade, 3 mid-grade, and 1 high-grade. The 3 elders sighed in amazement at the young girl's luck, marveling that she could even come across a high-grade pill. Each pill here represented a significant fortune. Daisy Lake shook her head, unsurprised by the elders' reactions. To them, outsiders were not worth wasting resources on. Only male descendants bearing the Ocean surname were considered worthy of nurturing and the rightful heirs to the Keys family's resources. Clara Ocean lifted the restriction on Rose Stevenson, cheerfully tossing her a low-grade essence condensation pill. With a bright smile, she teased, "I knew you'd get robbed. If it happens again, I'm out of pills. I'm a good kid, I don't owe debts." The elders froze in disbelief, looking as though they had turned to wax. Meanwhile, Rose Stevenson, as quick as lightning, hid the pill away, still wary of the 3 elders. Clara Ocean gave the elders one last glance, her golden core stage aura pressing down on them, causing their expressions to change instantly. A smirk played on her lips as she uttered 3 words, "Do not speak." The 3 elders immediately felt as though they were bound by invisible chains. They wanted to say something but found themselves unable to open their mouths. Rose Stevenson, attempting to retaliate against the third elder, soon realized her condition differed from theirs. The elders could still move freely, and thus, the unlucky girl was robbed once more, even losing her storage pouch this time. Even Daisy Lake couldn't help but laugh, and Clara Ocean found the situation equally amusing. "These old men are just too adorable," Clara Ocean remarked, using her spiritual sense to transmit a message to the 3 elders. Her teasing voice warned, "Be cautious of that woman. She has a purpose for being here." I foresee the Keyes family drowning in rivers of blood. However, what happens to the Keyes family is no longer our concern. After finishing her message, Clara Ocean froze time, slipped several myriad miles traceless charms, items she had collected from Uncle Lake, into the elder's hands, and then restored the flow of time. She continued her telepathic message, each of you now has a few myriad miles traceless charms. Use them when you need to escape, but don't let that woman find out. I've given you all my treasures. With that, Clara Ocean and Daisy Lake left without looking back. The three elders were filled with regret. Only now did they realize that the young girl they had underestimated was, in fact, a powerful Golden Core master, far surpassing them in strength. She had already reached the Golden Core stage. What stung even more was the realization that the girl they had driven away still cared enough to leave them life-saving talismans. They now suspected that those essence condensation pills might have been personally crafted by the very girl they had dismissed. Outside, Daisy Lake playfully tapped Clara Ocean on the nose, laughing as she asked, "Did you use your aura to scare them?" Clara Ocean spread her hands, an innocent expression on her face, and said, "I only used 1/10 of my pressure, who would have thought it would scare them like that? So weak, I looked down on them." As soon as Clara Ocean finished speaking, her head was knocked loudly by Daisy Lake, who said irritably, "You have 9 golden cores, while they only have 1, and it might not even be pure. Doing this is just bullying the weak." Clara Ocean rubbed her head, complaining, "They've been bullying us for so many years, and I only bullied them a little in return. Besides, if I don't take this chance now, there won't be another opportunity to do so later." Clara Ocean thought for a moment, then grinned mischievously and added, "However, Father brought back a big problem. The Keyes family is about to be annihilated." Daisy Lake nodded. She also noticed that the woman had serious issues. Unsure, she asked, "Are you planning to help them?" Clara Ocean rubbed her head and replied, "I already helped. Knowing they would definitely snatch those pills, I added a little seasoning. Unless someone from the Keyes family takes them, anyone else will experience ultimate agony. They'll feel their blood freeze, their organs decay bit by bit, and endure 1,000 years of unending pain. Of course, for beings like them, even tribulation lightning would be exhilarating. If one bolt doesn't kill them, I'll follow them to the end." Daisy Lake felt somewhat annoyed by her daughter's shamelessness. She prided herself on being a good role model, so why was her daughter so ruthless? Seeing her mother's expression, Clara Ocean quickly reassured her, "The pills in the bottle are safe, if someone from the Keyes family takes them, nothing will happen." Daisy Lake gave Clara Ocean a glare. Clara Ocean rubbed her nose and continued, "I'm sure, with the stubbornness of those 3 old men, if it's not a male member of the Keyes family, there's no chance they'll get to eat the pills." Daisy Lake thought about it and nodded in agreement. Clara Ocean added, "Mother, the Keyes family has no connection to us anymore. Why not plan when to undergo your tribulation? Once you've completed it, if there's still time, maybe we can really save them." As Clara Ocean spoke, she imagined a 9-tailed fox running rampant in the Keyes family. When everyone worshipped and thanked the fox, it would transform into the wife they had driven away. Just thinking about it made her feel delighted. Seeing Clara Ocean lost in her thoughts, Daisy Lake, annoyed, knocked her on the head again. Clara Ocean teared up and complained, "Mother, hitting me like this will make me dumb." Daisy Lake glared at her daughter again in frustration. At that moment, Clara Ocean thought to herself, "Mother, go through your tribulation, go through it. Once you're done, I'll urge Grandfather Fox to watch over you. As for the Keyes family, let them be." Daisy Lake was deep in thought, contemplating her own matters. She needed to arrange everything for her daughter before facing the Immortal Ascension tribulation. Clearly, her daughter could not stay long in the demon clan, but who could she entrust her to? The mother and daughter remained silent throughout the journey, each lost in their own thoughts. Upon returning to the Lake clan, news spread that Daisy Lake intended to undergo the Immortal Ascension tribulation. The fox demons in the clan instinctively began preparations, unanimously expressing their willingness to protect and observe the event. Meanwhile, Clara Ocean secretly shared stories about the Keyes family. Henry Lake gritted his teeth in anger and expressed his support for her decision. As long as Daisy Lake successfully passed the tribulation, he would naturally have a way to look after her. Of course, when recounting the tales of the Keyes family, Clara Ocean exaggerated the incidents, claiming they embezzled her pills and regularly withheld resources from her. Although Henry Lake knew she was exaggerating, he also understood there was some truth to it. After all, he cared somewhat about his daughter's situation there, so he put on an angry expression to match hers. Thus, an old fox and a young fox reached an initial agreement. Unaware of their plans, Daisy Lake continued to prepare earnestly for her tribulation. She had calculated everything meticulously. After all, they were once husband and wife. Once the tribulation was over, she planned to return to see if she could lend a hand. After 7 or 8 days of preparation, the group arrived at a desolate area in the Netherworld forest, a place rarely visited by birds or beasts. It was the most barren of barren lands, with black soil, scorched trees, and black rocks, a scene of utter desolation stretching for thousands of miles. Daisy Lake took one last look at her daughter, then resolutely unsealed her powers. At the same time, clouds resembling rainbows began to gather above them. Clara Ocean looked up at the colorful clouds with a puzzled expression. Goodness, why are the clouds so colorful? Daisy Lake was stunned and instinctively shouted, "Girl, run. This is the 7-colored thunder tribulation. All elemental lightning tribulations will descend. Run now, or it'll be too late." Clara Ocean naively asked, "Are the colorful clouds going to strike you, mother? What did you do to them?" Daisy Lake's face darkened as she replied, "Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, wind, thunder, and heart demon." Clara Ocean thought for a moment before saying, "I think I can help." With that, she focused all her spiritual energy and cast a spell on the clouds. Her pupils immediately turned a bright purple, and her mid-stage golden core cultivation level was revealed. However, Clara Ocean did not notice that the pressure from her mid-stage golden core cultivation was no less intimidating than that of Henry Lake, a nascent soul-level great demon. The spectators shuddered and instinctively stepped back. Internally, they cursed, "The 9th princess's daughter is truly fierce." Even a nascent soul-level demon was forced to retreat. At that moment, a golden lightning bolt, moving at an unbelievably slow pace, descended. The thin bolt was no thicker than a strand of hair. Daisy Lake frowned but easily absorbed it. The second bolt, slightly thicker and about the width of a pinky finger, followed. Clara Ocean began experimenting, gradually increasing the intensity of the lightning bolts to test the maximum limit Daisy Lake could endure. If the lightning became too intense, she would retreat slightly, allowing the bolt to dissipate. In this way, Daisy Lake remained in a state of absolute safety while enduring the tribulation. The heavenly lightning continued to descend, shifting from one element to another. In this tense and high-pressure situation, Clara Ocean worked tirelessly for over a month. Finally, the last bolt of lightning descended. All that remained was the heart demon tribulation, where Clara Ocean could provide little assistance. Nevertheless, Clara Ocean maintained her focus, occasionally throwing small sparks at Daisy Lake. The onlookers were puzzled, unsure of what Clara Ocean was doing. Only Henry Lake understood clearly. What Clara Ocean was tossing were mixtures of clear heart-glazed fire and chaotic holy flame. These flames were indeed divine tools for overcoming the heart demon tribulation. At this moment, Henry Lake finally understood a few things. Why did the little girl always have to hide every time she practiced alchemy? With such talent, she had to hide, otherwise, it would bring about a lot of trouble. Secondly, why was the little girl so confident about overcoming the heart demon tribulation? Good heavens, she was practically a cheat machine for transcending tribulations. Realizing this, Henry Lake immediately ordered the surrounding foxes to guard all sides, leaving him alone to anxiously watch Daisy Lake as she faced the heart demon tribulation. After all, love between humans and demons violated heavenly laws, and this heart demon tribulation would not be easy. Time flew by, and another month passed, yet Daisy Lake was still immersed in the tribulation. Chapter 9, Ascension. In broad daylight, Clara Ocean began to feel worried, restless, and anxious. Henry Lake tried to comfort his granddaughter. He knew very well that Clara Ocean was Daisy Lake's hope to awaken. If Clara Ocean gave up, Daisy Lake would truly be in trouble, with no hope left. Moreover, for a 3-year-old child to endure for 2 months was incredibly difficult. Henry Lake could understand her fatigue. After all, he knew better than anyone how immense the psychological pressure was. He was a father, after all. As time dragged on, Clara Ocean grew more agitated. She muttered incessantly, "Hey, wake up, wake up. Didn't you say defeating the heart demon was no big deal? I've been taking hits for you, do you think that's easy for me? Hey, wake up, wake up. Don't make me work for nothing. Lazy fox, wake up, lazy fox, wake up." Henry Lake sighed as he watched, wondering what kind of metaphors his granddaughter was using. But at this moment, he was also worried. Nearly 2 months had passed, and the longer it took, the slimmer the chances of Daisy Lake waking up. Furthermore, Clara Ocean was nearing her limit. If Daisy Lake didn't awaken, then Henry Lake himself would end up losing everything. Just as everyone was growing anxious, a white passage appeared in the sky. Its area gradually expanded, covering the space where Daisy Lake was. Clara Ocean asked in confusion, Is it still burning? What is that thing doing?" Henry Lake quickly pulled Clara Ocean out of the range of the light and hovered in the air. He finally had a moment to explain to his granddaughter, "Your mother has successfully transcended the tribulation." At that moment, Daisy Lake slowly opened her eyes, gazing at Clara Ocean with a hint of sorrow. In Clara Ocean's mind, 4 words inexplicably appeared: ascension in broad daylight. She knew it was the inherited memory giving her the correct explanation. That feeling was one of success, luck, it was a good thing. The surrounding fox demons, who had been watching the spectacle, gathered around, the scene tinged with melancholy. Clara Ocean asked hesitantly, "Mother, are you going to the heavens?" Henry Lake corrected her, "That's the immortal realm. Your mother has achieved immortality." Clara Ocean asked further, 1. So, it's a success, right? 2. If she goes up there, can she come back? Henry Lake patiently replied, "Yes, the tribulation was a success. But I'm afraid your mother won't be able to return anymore." Clara Ocean frowned. Why did she still feel like she had lost out this time? It seemed like no one was there to take care of her anymore. Daisy Lake wiped her tears and said, "Father, please look after Clara, don't let her be bullied by others." After saying this, Daisy Lake clasped her hands in a respectful bow and turned to Clara Ocean, saying, "Mother will wait for you in the immortal realm." Clara Ocean nodded without any unnecessary reaction, she just felt a bit sleepy. Looking at her daughter, Daisy Lake was filled with worry but couldn't resist the pulling force dragging her upward. In an instant, Daisy Lake suddenly vanished, and the golden light descending from the immortal realm disappeared just as abruptly. The surroundings fell into silence. Suddenly, wah! A loud cry echoed in Henry Lake's ears, startling him so much that he fell straight from the clouds. Of course, his body floated back mid-air almost immediately. Since Clara Ocean's body was always protected, even though Henry Lake fell, she was unharmed and continued to cry loudly without worry. Henry Lake couldn't help but mutter, "Girl, your reactions are way too slow." Clara Ocean grabbed Henry Lake's sleeve, sniffled, and sobbed, If I cried earlier, why you would definitely cry harder than me. Besides, this time we lost so much." Henry Lake fell silent, reluctantly comforting her, "This is a good thing. Clara Ocean, still sniffling into Henry Lake's robe, angrily scolded, "Get lost. How can you be happy about this? My mother is gone, your daughter is gone, and meeting her again isn't just some far-off dream, is it?" Henry Lake was dumbfounded and chose to stay quiet, letting Clara Ocean cry. From the location of the tribulation to the Lake clan, Clara Ocean only uttered one sound, "Wah." The fox demons around them all kept their distance. It was their first time witnessing the power of this seemingly insignificant little girl. Animals have very sensitive hearing. A sound that humans consider normal could already be overwhelming to them. Let alone a sound even humans found deafening. This made the fox demons wish they could kick the child far away. However, none of them dared to do so. Even Henry Lake endured it silently. It wasn't until nightfall that Clara Ocean finally stopped crying. Rubbing her stomach, she realized she was starving. At this point, everyone in the Lake clan had thick soundproofing devices on their ears, whether cotton or earplugs. Clara Ocean, unbothered by appearances, dove into the meat and vegetables on the table, devouring them. Once full, Clara Ocean wiped her mouth, looked up, rolled her eyes, and either fainted or fell asleep. The servants, terrified and panicking, quickly carried her to Ninth Princess's old room. Queen Eleanor of the Lake clan stayed behind to care for this granddaughter. Time passed quickly. Clara Ocean slept for a full 2.5 months. All the hardships she had endured seemed to be compensated for during this slumber. If not for the fact that she was still breathing, Henry Lake would have considered burying her and erecting an eternal monument in her memory. When Clara Ocean finally rubbed her eyes and stretched, the maid beside her screamed as if she'd seen a ghost and ran away. Clara Ocean was left with a bunch of question marks and ellipses floating above her head. She mumbled, "Am I really that scary?" She checked herself, everything seemed normal. She touched her face and looked at her legs, still normal. Why did she scare that sister so much? Just as she was inspecting herself, Henry Lake burst in with a group of people. Henry Lake anxiously asked, "How do you feel?" Clara Ocean rubbed her poor belly and said, "Hungry." The group of fox spirits collapsed to the ground en masse. Seeing their expressions, she asked curiously, May I ask, how long have I been asleep?" Henry Lake helplessly called for the maid to prepare food and replied irritably, 2.5 months. "If you didn't wake up soon, I was going to have someone dig a hole to bury you." Clara Ocean rolled her eyes at him, looking exasperated. Henry Lake asked, "What happened that day? Were you injured?" Clara Ocean rolled her eyes, trying to recall, then said, Cry until tired, then eat until full, then sleep." Very logical, very normal, right? Henry Lake immediately flew into a rage, roaring in Clara Ocean's ear, "Logical? Logical, my foot. Who just rolls their eyes and falls asleep instantly? At the very least, you should lie down in a normal position, shouldn't you?" Clara Ocean innocently rolled her eyes, covered her ears, and looked at the furious Henry Lake, silently lamenting, "So undignified. So undignified." Nicholas Wood, the happiest at this moment, was laughing uncontrollably on the ground. However, this time, he had made sure the ground was clear of any objects. Clara Ocean glanced at him, seeing him rolling about with great enthusiasm. Quietly, she took out a small dagger from behind her pillow and used her spiritual energy to guide it toward Nicholas Wood's backside as he rolled. Since Henry Lake was standing in front of her, only he saw her little action. Instantly, his mind filled with black crows, and he didn't even have the energy left to scold her. As soon as Clara Ocean fell silent, everyone heard Nicholas Wood let out a miserable scream and jump up from the ground. Henry Lake squinted his eyes, observing the scene. Clara Ocean solemnly declared, "At your age, rolling on the ground like that is a bad habit that needs to be corrected. If you do it again, I'll throw a dagger under you. Let's see if it can be fixed. Anyway, fox spirits have 9 lives, don't they?" Ha ha ha, several uncles with serious faces couldn't help but laugh out loud. This niece of theirs was truly amusing. Unfortunately, she was human, and not just human but one who almost couldn't transform into a fox spirit. In reality, they had a significant misunderstanding. It wasn't that Clara Ocean couldn't transform into a spirit, it was just that her appearance wouldn't change into one. After a grand feast, Clara Ocean leisurely probed Henry Lake about the affairs of the Keyes family. Henry Lake pondered for a moment before saying, "Do you really want to get involved?" Clara Ocean casually bit into an apple and said, "Pure curiosity, no intention to help, but making some profit is highly encouraged. Dreamwake City and Dream River Mountain, there are quite a few places in between to make some money. The Lake clan may not be big, but finding a few people to pluck feathers from shouldn't be a problem, right? At the very least, I'd expect 5 essence condensation pills, and other items shouldn't be lacking either. After all, one side is a prestigious sect, and the other is a mid-tier family. What's that saying? A skinny camel is still bigger than a fat horse." Henry Lake's expression stiffened slightly. A few minutes later, he coughed awkwardly and said, "Got it. I understand. Currently, there are some disciples from Dream River Mountain divided into several groups entering Dreamwake City. It can be confirmed that their target is the Keyes family. Among them, there are 3 at the Golden Core stage." Clara Ocean suddenly interjected, "You guys don't have any issues with fencing stolen goods, right?" Henry Lake's face turned awkward once again, but he still smiled and said, "No problem. The things we rob can be sold to major human cities or large sects, making a decent profit." Clara Ocean shot him a sidelong glance and said, "That's your business. Is there a way to gather the people of Dream River Mountain in one place? Surround and eliminate them, it would be more effective and save effort." Henry Lake thought for a moment and replied, "The Golden Core stage experts in the sect should have life tokens. If you take action, it will be easy to be hunted down." Clara Ocean said, "I want to test whether I can escape after cursing them." Henry Lake asked, "What if you fail?" Clara Ocean responded with a statement that made everyone want to spit blood, "Then I'll just reverse time and try again." Henry Lake was astonished and asked, "Then why didn't you keep your mother around?" Clara Ocean shot him another sidelong glance and said, "Do you think I'm stupid? Ascension is a good thing, why stop it? She has her own life." Henry Lake looked at Clara Ocean with a strange expression. Clara Ocean gave him another sidelong glance and said, "What are you looking at? I was in my mother's womb, I know how she lived. Maybe in another dimension, she'll live better. This is something you males wouldn't understand." #### Chapter 10, Rose Stevenson. The male demon foxes around were all stunned. Queen Eleanor burst out laughing and even openly gave Clara Ocean a thumbs up, expressing her admiration, while everyone else broke out in cold sweat. Henry Lake finally understood, he shouldn't expect this little girl to respect his elder status. After all, in the demon clan, strength is revered. Considering the girl's current state and her future potential, politeness was out of the question. After all, it would be others who got bullied, not him. He coughed lightly and asked, "So, what do you plan to do next?" Clara Ocean cracked her knuckles and calculated, "If this operation goes smoothly, I could earn quite a few spirit stones. Besides the 3 golden cores, I still need more spirit stones, at least enough to live in Dreamwake City for a week. That way, I'll have spending money. I can set up a stall to refine pills and secretly keep some for myself. In about a week, I can continue living the carefree life of eating whatever I want." Henry Lake asked, "You're not planning to hide your strength anymore?" Clara Ocean looked at Henry Lake with disdain and said, "These are 2 completely different concepts, okay? Strength has nothing to do with alchemy talent, understand? Do you think I can just produce pills out of thin air? That's only possible with a slight use of time laws, just a minor reversal, alright? Don't treat me like a deity." Henry Lake looked at his wife with a resentful expression. Why did talking to this little girl make him feel such a deep generational gap? Henry Lake gritted his teeth and thought, he really didn't understand how the Keyes family raised their children, their mindset was just too unconventional. Seeing Nicholas Wood about to roll on the ground again, he waved his hand, and a flying knife pinned the spot where Nicholas's butt was about to land. That spot had plenty of flesh, so it wouldn't hurt too much. Nicholas Wood looked resentful, using his tail to pull out the flying dagger and casually threw it back to Clara Ocean. The demons of the Lake clan also noticed that Clara Ocean had been here for a long time, and her complexion had clearly worsened, obviously due to insufficient spiritual energy supply. What frustrated them the most was that the longer the little girl stayed with the Lake clan, the more violent and ruthless she became. Nicholas Wood asked gloomily, "Why do you want the golden cores of those people?" Clara Ocean replied, "Isn't it true that the demon clan can consume the inner cores of their own kind? I want to see if I can eat their golden cores. I've already tried consuming demon cores, but I couldn't digest them." The fox demons fell silent. Clara Ocean rolled her eyes and said, "Call a rat brother to deliver a message to the great elder of the Keyes family, informing him about the disciples from Dream River Mountain arriving here." Henry Lake asked suspiciously, "Why?" Clara Ocean's next words nearly made Henry Lake choke. "Oh, I used to ask the rat brothers to help steal food. They are very persuasive messengers. Besides, if we send just one rat, a whole swarm will come ahead to steal all the good stuff. Even if no one guards the rest, there won't be much left to gain." Henry Lake roared again, "What kind of humans taught you this? How could you come up with such a sinister idea at such a young age?" Clara Ocean fearlessly retorted, "To eat well, you need sinister ideas. All the little demons near Dreamwake City are under my protection, you know." The fox demons were speechless. Henry Lake had no choice but to compromise. He ordered a fox demon to ambush in Dreamwake City and instructed the rats to act. At this moment, a fox demon messenger returned with news that Rose Stevenson might be on the verge of undergoing her tribulation. This year, Martin Ocean was living a miserable life. His wife had passed away, his daughter was gone, and the concubine he had just married hadn't even been touched for a single day before she was preparing to forcibly undergo her golden core tribulation. The three elders of his family glared at him every time they saw him, as if he had committed some heinous crime. Martin Ocean wanted to say, "Weren't you the ones who drove them away before?" Now they were blaming everything on him. Recently, there had been reports of numerous Dream River Mountain disciples flooding into Dreamwake City, putting the Keyes family on high alert. Yesterday, the second elder caught a letter-carrying rat. The rat arrogantly danced in front of them. When they opened the letter on the rat's back, it read, "Exterminate the Keyes family, but do not harm the messenger rat. The people from Dream River Mountain are problematic. If they rob, let them rob. Save yourselves first, revenge does not require your involvement." Now, dark tribulation clouds loomed over the Keyes family. Rose Stevenson had chosen to undergo her tribulation there, clearly disregarding the lives of the Keyes family members. At the same time, Clara Ocean and Henry Lake were outside Dreamwake City, watching the dark tribulation clouds over the Keyes family. Clara Ocean's lips twitched. Was this an attempt to turn the Keyes family into a pit? Clara Ocean snapped out of her thoughts and turned to ask Henry Lake, "Want to bathe in heavenly thunder?" Henry Lake shook his head like a drum, instinctively fearing the heavenly lightning despite having reached the nascent soul stage. Clara Ocean sneered and said, "I'll bathe." Then she muttered, "I wonder how inferior a golden core would be if it hasn't been refined by heavenly thunder." Henry Lake hesitantly asked, "You had this planned all along, didn't you?" Clara Ocean scratched her head and replied, "No planning involved. I just placed a curse on the essence condensation pill she consumed. If she attempts tribulation, the curse will activate. Golden core. She can forget about it for the rest of her life, I guarantee it. Who in their right mind offends an alchemist and dares to consume something they've crafted? Truly courting death." Henry Lake wiped his sweat, realizing this girl was truly cunning to an extreme degree. Cursing a pill, was that really something an alchemist should do? Weakly, he said, "This isn't right." Clara Ocean coldly retorted, "And bullying me and my mother is right?" Henry Lake fell silent, tilting his head back at a 45-degree angle, pretending to be invisible. Clara Ocean, however, didn't let up, saying, "Do you realize that pill was most likely stolen from me without permission? Otherwise, the curse wouldn't have activated, right? She's already disregarded morality. Reasoning with someone like that is just asking for trouble, isn't it?" Henry Lake reluctantly nodded. The reasoning was sound, but his conscience told him it was still too cruel. As tribulation clouds gathered in large quantities, the first heavenly lightning struck down. Witnessing the Keyes family's years of hard work on the verge of being obliterated, the three elders of the Keyes family were furious. Under their enraged gazes, the lightning in the sky suddenly changed direction, shooting outside the city. At that moment, the onlookers in Dreamwake City were dumbfounded. What was happening? How could heavenly lightning make a turn? Confused, the crowd followed the lightning out of the city. Clara Ocean raised her hands in a receiving gesture, gathering each bolt of heavenly lightning into her small palms, forming them into lightning spheres that then disappeared without a trace. Seeing no one approaching, Clara said, "Old man, watch closely, but don't interfere. If this succeeds, the Nine Tails won't just be a dream." As Henry Lake stood in shock, disciples from Dream River Mountain within the city sensed something unusual was happening. 3 Golden Core Masters, disregarding everything, followed the second bolt of lightning. Seeing people approaching, Henry Lake prepared to transform and fight. Clara Ocean calmly said, Hey, don't steal my prey, alright? A senior should act with dignity. If you anger me, I might add some extra seasoning to your medicine." Henry Lake nearly stumbled to the ground, barely able to stand. He just wanted to help, was that so wrong? The 3 Golden Core Masters saw Clara Ocean absorbing the heavenly lightning in an unusual manner. Noticing Henry Lake beside her, who appeared formidable, they politely asked, "I am Vincent Spirit of Dream River Mountain. May I know who the senior is?" Seeing the respectful tone of the other party, Henry Lake prepared to state his title, intending to scare them off, "I am." Before he could finish, Clara Ocean impatiently interrupted, "You are what?" "Shut up. No one's selling you off as mute, you know." Henry Lake froze in place, feeling like crying but unable to shed tears. He was a senior after all, the renowned Henry Lake. Couldn't she show a little respect? Was that too much to ask? The 3 Golden Core Masters were also fuming. Who was this brat? Did playing with lightning make her so impressive? Alongside the lightning, apart from the 3 elders of the Keyes family, several Foundation establishment cultivators from Dream River Mountain had also arrived. The 3 elders of the Keyes family, upon seeing Clara Ocean, had peculiar expressions. Clara Ocean glanced at them, and the 3 tacitly looked skyward, pretending not to know her. While everyone was engrossed in the spectacle, back in the Keyes family residence within Dream River Mountain, Rose Stevenson suddenly convulsed and collapsed onto her bed. Her body became immobile as energy continuously converged toward the spiritual core in her dantian. She felt the true fire within her body relentlessly burning, refining the pill, her essence, and her life force, all being devoured by that pill. At the same time, the main gates of the Keyes family were stormed by hundreds of people, who began looting and destroying. The 3 elders, receiving the signal and about to leave, suddenly noticed a fiery red pearl shooting into the sky from Martin Ocean's room in the Keyes family estate. At this moment, many people were surrounding and fighting over this pearl. The strange thing about this pearl was that when members of the Keyes family touched it, at most, they were repelled, fell a few times, and got some bruises. However, when the disciples of Dream River Mountain touched the pearl, they were immediately drained into lifeless husks. Eventually, even the most foolish person realized something was amiss, and no one dared to fight for the pearl anymore. The pearl, unbothered, quickly flew toward Clara Ocean and her group after clearing out the surrounding Dream River Mountain disciples. As everyone looked on in shock, the red pearl directly shattered the teeth of Vincent Spirit's companion nearby before burrowing into that person's stomach. Then, an astonishing scene unfolded. From the throat of that cultivator, a clear red object could be seen falling into their dantian, pushing out a golden object resembling the internal core of the demon clan, typically used to attack others. Among those present, only Henry Lake was from the demon clan. He was already familiar with the phenomenon of spitting out pearls under the moon. Seeing the golden core fly out, he instinctively reached out and grabbed it, securing the golden core in his hand. None of the others had cultivation levels as high as his, nor were they as familiar with this situation, so they could only look at Henry Lake with envy. To them, the value of a golden core far exceeded everything else, especially since everyone here, except Henry Lake, was still at the golden core stage. In truth, Henry Lake's actions were purely instinctual, just as Clara Ocean's earlier inheritance and her mother's teachings had emphasized how crucial the demon clan's internal cores were. Therefore, Clara Ocean had brought Henry Lake along, anticipating the appearance of a round object that this sly old fox would undoubtedly seize first. Moreover, seeing it emerge from someone else's mouth made it even less likely for him to let it go.